Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. This game's not ordinary. It's a 2-7 matchup by numbers, but two good teams, Philadelphia and Green Bay, both had Super Bowl aspirations at the start of the season, but who persevered? The injury report is out, and really no surprises for Philadelphia. Just one name on that list that you can kind of say, okay, DNP today was Devontae Smith, but he should play in the game. A.J. Brown was back at practice today, and everybody else. Adam Caplan is here. Never hurt. Adam Caplan is back for the second day in a row on a Football at 4 Friday. What's up, Adam?
Yeah, good to talk to you, Mike. So as a tradition on Football at 4 with Caplan and Gill, the Eagles injury report comes out at 3:59. So now I want to talk about Devontae Smith, and we're going to get to A.J. Brown because there's been developments over the last couple hours. Because he actually spoke to the media. Very interesting. I did just listen to it. But with Devontae Smith, he's actually been on and off the injury report for 3 weeks with his back issue. He did not work today. And Friday, by the way, is always the lightest day of the week for practice of the 3 when you play Sunday. So, yeah, he's clear to play. It's just something to watch. He had the wrist injury, the right wrist injury. That's off the injury report. But the big one is A.J. Brown. So what happened is he clarified what happened Wednesday. So he wasn't supposed to work Wednesday at the link, and he came over with the team, and he left. So he never actually went up practicing. Thursday, as you know, Mike, he was held out. He's got this left knee issue, which it first came up when he got tackled awkwardly late in that Pittsburgh game when they were trying to pass the game to put the game away. And then he felt a tweak in it that Thursday practice leading up to the next game, which I believe was against Washington. Still played, still scored. And then he took all the normal reps that he would take on a Friday practice, which is generally under an hour, and they don't practice a lot on Friday. So this is something, and I listened to his press conference, Mike. I mean, it doesn't sound very good. He made it clear he's playing. We don't know exactly what it is, whether it's a sprained knee. We just don't know what it is, but obviously playing on it doesn't make it better, clearly, because he's still dealing with whatever it is. So that's something we're going to watch on Sunday, Mike. How good does he look against the Packers?
Yeah, I know A.J. Brown, he said it, as you mentioned, hey, we're all banged up at this stage of the season. And then Smith, the one thing with Smith is a back. You never know with a back. You can feel great one day, and then you wake up, you're locked up, and you can barely move. I mean, the back thing is a little something there. But, hey,
for sure.
We'll hope that he wakes up on Sunday on the right side of the bed and everybody's ready to go. But the injury report looks pretty good for Philadelphia. Green Bay, by the way, their injury report, I haven't seen that one yet, but Christian Watson, we know, is out. Jordan Love was at practice. He's been a little sore, but most likely will go in the game. That's a big one for them. When you talk about the Eagles, you look at their offensive side of the ball. Let's go to the matchups. Adam Caplan, and get your take. Eagles offense against the Packers defense. They scored 34 points the first time they played. So what are some of the keys for offense against the Packers defense?
I teased this yesterday. So now I do want to say that knowing that A.J. Brown's knee issue is far worse than we anticipated, and with Devontae Smith's back injury, see, we don't know with the back, is it, okay, you just talked about, is it something that he woke up with? Well, most likely it came out of a game. If with contact, will it aggravate it? We don't know that. So typically the way you beat the Packers, just like the Lions did and the Vikings did, is you throw the football. Okay, that's the clear blueprint, is you throw the football. Now, the Packers might go third against the run in the National Football League, 4 yards to carry. That's actually really good in today's NFL. They have an excellent defensive line rotation. They're really good at inside backer. They're good. Their front is good. They're good at safety. They're not very good at corner. They're below average. But the question is to be able to protect. I don't worry about that. And the weather's is clearing up. It's going to be mid to high 30s. The wind, which has been terrible this week, should be fine on Sunday, less than 10 miles an hour. That's throwing weather, but I'm just a little concerned with. I don't know what A.J. Brown can and can't do. And with Devontae Smith's situation. Now, Dallas Goedert's back. He looked great last week. We talked about that. He got knocked around for a quarter. They got him out. So they're going to be available. You just don't know how effective they're going to be. But you got to throw the football. I mean, you just have to. Now, that first game in Brazil, they did a good job. JalenHurts was terrific in that game. Yes, he turned it over a little bit, but he also had several outstanding throws in that game. Barkley wasn't great in terms of running the football in that game, but their offense starts with Barkley. Now but there's a caveat, Mike. Before we move on here, the last game that Jalen started from beginning to end, where he finished against the Steelers, the Eagles actually came out throwing. In fact, the 5 out of the first 6 plays were called passes. He was outstanding in that game. I get that Hurts, has missed 2.5 weeks. I get that, but he's healthy. He's been cleared. They got to throw the ball here. They just can't come in with this passive attitude. The one thing the teams are showing you could throw against the Packers.
Yeah, they threw against the Packers in the first game, 67-yard touchdown pass to A.J. Brown. They also had 132 total yards from SaquonBarkley in the game, so Philadelphia has a couple things going for them. They're very beatable, the Packers defense is. They do have a deep defensive line rotation. We'll see how that factors in here because the Eagles' offensive line, we always say, you might be good at pass rush, but you always feel good about the Eagles' offensive line holding up regardless, right? I mean, that's one area. If you have a good pass rush, you feel like Philadelphia can neutralize that.
Now, see, if you look at the numbers of the Packers secondary, they're certainly better than the talent would lead you to believe. Because Jair Alexander, who hasn't played in nearly 2 months, he's done, most likely for the playoffs. He just had knee surgery. And Keyshawn Nixon has been either their second or third corner. He's definitely starting. He's their kick and punt returner. Mostly does kickoffs. And then Carrington Valentine, who was a 7th rounder last year, he's been starting for Alexander. Teams will go after Valentine. That's the guy the Eagles will look to target. There's no question about it. When you talk to teams, Mike, every week, they'll tell you typically that it's rare to have 2 elite corners. There's someone you're going to target. And Carrington Valentine's that guy that Kellen Moore will target in this game.
Yeah, they got all problems in their safety position, too. They've had some injuries back there, so we'll see who even lines up at safety for the Green Bay Packers. Let's look at the Packers offense because much like Philadelphia, they got some weapons on the outside. They got a running back, and they got a quarterback who's an aggressive thrower of the football. And look, they protect him. Only 14 sacks this year of Jordan Love.
It's surprising because, Mike, if you look at their offensive line, you go, wow, this is a no-name line. Walker's a left tackle, was a 7th rounder in the past. He's an okay player, but doesn't give up a lot of pressures. Zach Thomas come out of nowhere, number 50. Who had been a backup prior to this season. He's done a really good job. I'll tell you what, they're really well coached by Luke Butkus, who's a nephew of the late Dick Butkus. They just do they do a really good job as a cohesive unit, but that doesn't mean the Eagles can't win. Mike, and look, what's ironic, 2 of the teams on the bottom 5 of Blitz Rate are playing against each other. It's just kind of comical. Usually you don't see that. Now, the defense that the Packers run is a 43 front. They changed it. Now offensively, it's very much like Kyle Shanahan, a lot of outside zone. They're a very patient offense. Now, of course, without Christian Watson, as you mentioned, Mike, he's their shot play receiver. The guy you're going to see is Dontavian Wicks, who's a 2nd rounder, was a 5th rounder last year. He was a 2nd-year player, 5th rounder last year out of UVA. He can run. He's not the blazer that Watson is, but he can run. You're going to see him. He's a big guy. But there are a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, 1 back. You mentioned Josh Jacobs. The offense starts with Josh Jacobs because Matt LaFleur, like Kyle Shanahan, and the 2, by the way, coached in Washington with the Commanders, he believes in balance. So he sometimes where you go, wow, why don't you throw the football? He wants to run it. That always plays into the offensive hands, but you got to watch out for play action. They're a big play action team and a big motion team, just like Kyle Shanahan. So that's what's coming, Mike, with this offense. They're deep at tight end. They got Luke Musgrave back over the last 2 weeks. He's the athletic part of that 2 tight end offense they have with Tucker Kraft, who's number 85. You mentioned Jordan Love, Mike, super aggressive thrower. Turned the ball over a ton the first half, not turning over the second half because they've been more run-centric. That's helped him settle down a little bit. And the dude's a gunslinger. He'll throw it when you don't think he's going to throw it. But now, again, they want his temps down. But the bottom line is they're a balanced offense. But if they let him throw it, man, he can make plays. And the guy they're going to target is Darius Slay. That's the guy that teams want to go after.
Well, I'll tell you what, Philadelphia, I'm interested in the who gets the pass rush. Is it a Jalen Carter coming up the middle? Is it Josh Sweat? We played a bite earlier in the show from John Gruden who said, Sweat got 2 holding penalties against him in the first game in that game. So can he cause a little bit of havoc, or do you get that push from up the middle? My big thing is if it's a close game late in the game, who gets to Love? Who's the guy from the Eagles that can get there? Because that really – been the question all year, right? Do they have that guy who can get the big play and maybe not get the sack, but just hurry you, and that forces the turnover?
Well, the guy who now this is the breakout come to the party game for Zach Bond. He was unbelieving believable with 11 solos in that game in week 1, 2 sacks. Because it's funny, Mike. Coming into the season, we knew that Zach Bond would start, but we didn't know a lot about him because he had a rather nondescript training camp. Now the Eagles would tell you, as people we spoke to told us, didn't make a lot of mental errors. They really liked that about him. But who the heck knew, Mike? And by the way, congratulations to Zach Bond as being an All-Pro. I am, Mike, this is one of the all-time stories, considering his role was supposed to be a backup edge rusher and special teams player. Like, nobody saw this coming. Neither did Howie Roseman because he signed him for what I just talked about. But isn't it funny that the defense coordinator saw something different, and here we go? So on your point, Mike, I'll be interested to see what they do with Zach Bond here, because one of the things that they did is, because of Josh Jacobs, they moved him into the box a little bit. Not quite like they did against New Orleans, where they were going to take away the toss play to Alvin Kamara. And then look, you have guys like Nakobe Dean who are very important, who had a couple really nice plays in that first game, and he's been excellent against the run for the most part. So look, they're a team that wants to be balanced. It's going to start with Josh Jacobs. I don't worry about Josh Jacobs. Mike, don't forget the Eagles, who had a shaky run defense for the first 5 or 6 weeks. They've turned it around, so I don't worry about that. I'm more worried about, can they get pressure on Jordan Love, because you don't want this guy to carve you up.
Yeah, that's the case. And who gets that? Where's the weak spot in the line for the Packers where you feel? This is where you talk about Jalen Carter, all pros.
Yeah,
this is where you got to be an all pro. These are the games right here. Yeah,
and Mike, look, Sean Ryan's a first-year starter who was rotating last year with John Runyon Jr. Elton Jenkins is a guy who's played left tackle, has had a lot of injuries, now playing left guard. Rasheed Walker has been a good story development. He's not a great player. Zach Tom has been a big I mentioned him. I don't know if there's that one spot. It's just guys got to win their individual matchups. It's, again, because, Mike, they don't blitz, really. They're aggressive in their zones. The Eagles are very disciplined, and that's why this defense, Mike, is so good, because everybody talks about bend and don't break. Well, they're not really bending like people thought they would this season.
No, and the one guy who didn't play the first time, as we know, is Cooper DeJean, and that was a big spot in the game where Jaden Reed, he beat up on Avonte Maddox in that game. Not as easy this time around.
Oh, by the way, I do want to mention that. Okay, speaking of that, Isaiah Rodgers, because of his broken hand, didn't play in week 1, who's their third outside corner. And a guy who we told you would not be part of this season, well, that was true early on. As Jalen Hunt was not in the rotation, he was their 5th edge rusher. Well, the 2 guys in front of him are out. He's now their 3rd edge rusher. So you never know, Mike, with the playoffs, who could be the hero. We didn't know that Zach Bond would be the hero in week 1. Who saw it? I mean, we certainly didn't. And then the good story, Mike, is that you mentioned DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, number 27, we have to mention. They've got a lot of experience this season in critical games. The Baltimore game was probably that game, Mike, where you go, wow, these young kids. Remember, DeJean stuck that Derrick Henry on that stick tackle, which was incredible, which made a huge meme. These guys have risen to the occasion. I expect it to happen late Sunday afternoon at the Link.
Adam Caplan, football at 4. The playoffs are here. We've gone 18 weeks of regular season football. We go all off season. We go all year for football at 4, but it's all for this moment. It's Eagles and Packers this Sunday, 4:25, actually 4:30. They push it back 5 minutes for the playoffs. It's 4:30 right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Adam, we'll talk to you, pal.
See ya.